Hey guys, how you going? This is BillyEatWorld, and today we're going to take another look at the history of FPS games. And in the last episode, we covered the game that started it all, Wolfenstein 3D, which means it's time to check out the next big hit in the genre, Doom. Just like Wolfenstein, Doom was also made by id Software, and it's pretty much a massive improvement in every respect. In fact, it's so much better that it actually makes you wonder how they pulled it off, considering it was only released in 1993, barely a year after Wolf 3D. In a nutshell though, Doom is a similar style of game to Wolfenstein in that you basically have to work your way through levels split into 4 episodes, and once again you're on your own fighting your way through hordes of enemies, but unlike in Wolfenstein, you're not fighting Nazis, you're fighting demons this time. The game also isn't set on Earth. In fact, it's set sometime in the future on the moons of Mars and then later in Hell itself. But most importantly, the biggest difference between the two games is that Doom ran on a completely new engine, which meant it looked and felt a lot better. Now, another big difference that stuck with me ever since I first played Doom is that it had 8 weapons, which was more than double what Wolfenstein had. And by today's standards, that honestly doesn't seem like many at all, but at the time it really felt like you had all the options in the world. The other cool thing is that as well as basic weapons like the shotgun and the pistol, you could also use weapons like a chainsaw and a plasma rifle. And of course, who could forget probably the most famous gun in the history of FPS games, the BFG 9000, which is the gun that you can see on screen now. Another interesting new feature of Doom was the addition of armor, which encouraged you to go exploring because it was often found in secret areas. And so, unlike in Wolfenstein, you actually had a lot more health to play with, which definitely made it a lot easier to survive on the higher difficulty modes. This idea of a 2-tier health system is something that would go on to be copied by dozens of other FPS games, and even now it's still part of games like Halo. But sadly, in most other FPS games it's been replaced by regenerating health, which does have its pros, but at the end of the day feels completely different. Now, still on new features, I don't think it's possible to really do a fair review of Doom without mentioning multiplayer, because this is probably its biggest legacy. And in a nutshell, basically it had 2 multiplayer modes, a co-op mode and a PvP mode, which both supported up to 4 players. The big reason Doom's multiplayer is so important though is because it was the first FPS game to bring these modes into the mainstream. And not just that, it was also the game which coined the term deathmatch, which is yet another feature that's been copied by pretty much every franchise since then. With that being said though, multiplayer in general in the early 90s, I can tell you, wasn't the streamlined experience it is today. And assuming that you could actually figure out how to get your computers to talk to each other, there wasn't anything like a modern server browser feature. So in other words, although Doom did pioneer multiplayer in FPS games, most people, including me, simply didn't get to experience that part of the game at the time. And so in terms of multiplayer, like what happened with Wolfenstein, it would actually end up being the games that came after it, like Quake, that would get most of the credit. But anyway, to finish up, like I said, Doom for the most part was an improvement on everything Wolfenstein 3D started, and then some. And it was this transition from humble beginnings to a much more solid feature-packed game that made it even more successful than its predecessor ever was. Once again, just like Wolfenstein, this success would lead Doom to end up being ported to just about every major platform you can think of. And of course, it would also pave the way for 2 more numbered sequels, as well as the recent reboot which only came out a few months ago. For the modern gamer though, if you want to check out the original Doom, then you can pick it up on Steam or just emulate an abandonware copy for free. But if you're a bit more adventurous and you're after things like 1080p and mouse aim, well, I'd say check out the version I'm using in this video, which is called Z-Doom. Either way though, if you haven't played this game before, you need to check it out because it really is the most important FPS game ever made. And the good news is that still to this day, as dated as it does look, it's surprisingly just as fun as it was way back in the 90s. But anyway guys, I think that just about brings us up to speed, so let me know what you think in the comments section below, and as always, if you like what you see, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Also, check out the links in the description below if you want to see any more of my videos, or if you want to support my channel on Patreon. And until next time, see you later, and have a good one.